market, unless you're marketing all male or all women, is not all of whatever you start with. So the more diversity that you have in your team, the better you're going to be able to build a product or service. How will you lead? To me, that's the place you got to start when you're starting a business, is what kind of leader are you going to be? How are you going to show up? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How are you going to complement yourself? And that's what I'm going to focus on tonight. I want to start by demonstrating and explaining my bias. When you're a leader, one of the things you want to be clear about is where you come from, what you're good at, and what your internal biases are, because that's going to inform how you see everything that happens in front of you. So, for example, I come from the startup world with a grounding in consulting. So for a long time, for example, at FreshBooks, I would constantly be given feedback not to use MBA or consulting language because it didn't fit their culture, they didn't understand it, and I really needed to talk at an execution operating level in a fast pace. So that's an example of understanding where I come from and how that fits to what I'm going to be doing. I've also had a lot of international experience, which is greatly helpful in working with multicultural context. Again, something if you have only grown up in a small town, Ontario, and you're going to serve a multicultural context, you want to be aware of that and really build your skills there and expand your mind. So, leading to know yourself and model that leadership. It's very easy to say, know thyself. It's a common phrase that's been around a long time, and I don't think I really understood that till I got into my 30s. In my 20s, it's just like, yeah, sure, of course. I'm great, I'm awesome, I'm driven, but it didn't really sink in terms of what does that mean when you're growing a team or building an organization or attacking a new market? Where are your strengths? And where are the things that you're not good at? I just finished or in the process of wrapping up another startup I did with a friend of mine, and I'm going to continue it. She's going to come out of it, because what we realized is our strengths don't play well together. We're great friends, but we're not great business partners. And that's something in terms of really understanding yourself and knowing how you're going to work. So what I mean is, what do you value? Those values are going to show up in how you scale your organization. What's your management style? Do you like people management? Because if you don't like people management and you like product management or service-oriented or the sales part of it, great. That means you're going to need someone to complement yourself on the people side, because this is all about talent. Maybe you want to do a personality test or 2 or 3. I've lost track of how many I've done. They're fun, they're informative, and they'll give you, again, a perspective about yourself and how you work with others and what your perception is going to be when things happen. The thing about startups and running a business, it's really hard work, as everyone says, and it never works out the way you think it's going to. So when you fail, because something didn't work out the way that you want it to, you got to know how you handle failure. Again, using myself as an example, I'm a hard driver, A-type personality, used to succeeding, and when I fail, it's hard. And it takes me a little bit of time to sort of really acknowledge that and be okay in the vulnerability of that first sting of failure. And I know that, so I get over that quickly because I've got coping mechanisms for it. Call up a friend of mine and have a glass of wine as an example, and then quickly figure out, okay, what's the root cause of this? What do I need to do to fix it? But that first sting, if you're not used to it or you've never experienced it before, you might take a little long to deal with it. I'm working with one startup now where it's taken them months to acknowledge that they're in the wrong roles. And that those months are wasted money, talent, resources. It shrinks your runway if you've got investors. So it's really critical to understand how you work, how you think, etc. And then just watch out, again, for your biases. And a plug for hire diversity. Hire more women, hire different cultural backgrounds, and there's not just for the goodness of it, but you will build better product. Your market, unless you're marketing all male or all women, is not all of whatever you start with. So the more diversity that you have in your team, the better you're going to be able to build a product or service. Bench strength. Again, my experience comes from these different places. FreshBooks, as an example, great example of surrounding themselves not only with internal talent that was world-class, so when they could find someone that was world-class at a particular function or grow someone into that, they did. And they also surrounded themselves with amazing advisors, coaches, board members. Very, very picky about who their board was going to be, if they were going to take VC or not. Mic Berman has written a lot about that. And these are different things. A coach is a very different relationship than an advisor or a board member. A board member is going to hold you to account to what you set, but it's also someone you can choose because you're in that relationship for the long haul. And if they have a different value set than you, they're all about the numbers and they don't care about people. We're just making up an extreme. You want to know that because when it comes down to a crunch and it's going to be a numbers decision, they're going to push you for that even though it's at a great cost of personnel talent on your team or your culture. So you need to really know that. And the other critical thing as you're building your organization is alignment. This is a practice that does not go away. It's not like you go, okay, we're taking this hill, we're traveling in this direction, we're going to build this service, and then that's the end. You never have the conversation again. You always are having that conversation with your direct team, like your leadership team, the entire organization. Check in regularly. As a practical example, FreshBooks, every month we did an all hands. Shopify, every month they do an AMA, ask me anything. The leaders stand up in front of the room like I am now. Anybody in the audience in their company can ask any question. So get into the practice of communicating a lot about your vision, about what you guys are learning, about how things are going. And build great teams. Here are the 6 things that you must do to ensure your success. I'm being purposely inflammatory in the sense that if you do not do these things that I'm putting up here, you will suffer the consequences. You will churn, you will waste time, you will waste money, and your runway will shrink. There are several startups that I'm working with now where that has happened. My intent here is not to be a jerk and sort of put up the negativity. I want you to succeed. I want you to build a greater Canadian economy. I want more innovation. And so I'm asking you to do these 6 things to make sure that you're successful. Be a strong leader. High performance. Don't tolerate B players or C players. And don't tolerate it in yourself. You've got to, as soon as you see that, put them on a performance plan. Address the problem. Have the crucial conversation. Be effective at the top in terms of alignment. As soon as you see any of your core leaders around you talking in a different way than you do or being negative at all out in the, in the staff, get a hold of it right away and have that conversation. Also, a healthy attitude about failure. Just as I said, you are going to fail in the sense that it's not going to work out the way you thought. It just isn't. We humans are naturally optimistic. It's one of the great things about us, but it means that you're going to be surprised. So be able to and build your culture in a way that's ready for that failure. Again, FreshBooks is a great example of this. Retrospectives. Always have a retrospective. Pursue your vision relentlessly. People think that pivoting could be a bad thing, or it's a great thing, it's a badge of honor. The core thing about your vision is that there's a kernel of the idea. So again, using FreshBooks as an example, it was solve the pain of invoicing. When Mike started the company with the other 2 founders, this was their biggest pain. That's what they were solving. Everything they've done to the product, all the pivots that they've made, have never changed the core fundamental kernel of the idea. So have that vision really clear in your mind and be prepared to adjust maybe what it looks like or how it feels or how you execute with data, with input, but not the core vision. Drive a strong culture of excellence. Again, you're building a great team, and anything that smells to you like it doesn't fit, doesn't seem right, nip it in the bud as soon as you can. I appreciate it's not an easy conversation. This business I was just building with my friend, who's a good friend of mine, we avoided the conversation for quite a while because she was a friend of mine. And I'm really good at this. I train people for feedback all of the time. I advise a great startup called Whirl, which is all about feedback. So it's important. And so recognize it's going to be hard to do it, but you've got to do it. You've got to have those conversations. There's a great Peter Drucker saying about culture eats strategy for lunch. Culture, to me, is the sustainable competitive differentiator. FreshBooks, Shopify, Virage Sale, these are great examples of companies that are built on a culture of serving their customer and serving or supporting their staff. In FreshBooks, there was a great expression for the support team, which is execute on extraordinary experiences every day. Support is a strategic, important element of their business that's also the great cultural driver of their organization. And it was done so intentionally. So keep that in mind in terms of how you think about and build your company. Align product, marketing, and engineering. So if you're building a technology-based startup, of which a lot of my career is, that's going to be a product. And one of the challenges is that engineering, which drives product typically, is going to drive the organization. But you cannot execute on engineering alone. Similarly, in the service, you can't execute on consulting alone. You need good marketing to go with that. You need to be able to be saying a good message out to the audience, to your customer base, to reach people in. You need strong product discipline around the learning engine. Is this working? Isn't it working? Why? Why not? So those core functions are critical, and they cannot operate in a silo. I can't tell you how many startups I've advised that even small, like there are only 20 or 30 or 50 people, and those organizations aren't talking to each other, working together on a regular basis. Simple way to do that is shared goals. What's our number one focus? Is it reach? Is it conversion? What are we trying to learn? Regular meetings with those groups, inside those meetings, talking about what they've learned, the data that they have to inform themselves, and again, a healthy attitude around failure that doesn't involve ego. It's not about defending a position. You don't have time for that when you're starting something new and just trying to learn. You've got to always be in that learning mode. As you scale, once you've figured out, okay, we've got something here, there's a service or there's a product, it's product market fit, there's something here, that's when you want to really start thinking about scaling and people systems back to the culture. So be focused on performance from the beginning and have really good systems in place to measure that. Maybe a monthly review, at least one-on-ones. There's so many organizations where the leadership basically isn't even, you're talking, you're all there, you guys are having conversations, but you're not ever just sitting down one-to-one and going, hey, how's it going? What are you noticing? How are you feeling about things? So those things are really important from the CEO level all the way across the organization. So have those one-on-one conversations and also do formal reviews. Again, many organizations forget. People want feedback. They want to know how they're doing. We're all driven by this innate desire to do well and to be perceived as doing well by ourselves and the people we work with. So give people feedback on how they're going. You can use a system like Whirl. You could just have a one-on-one conversation, and that would be good enough. And then as you prepare to scale, a lot of organizations not only don't think about the people that they're hiring, which Kevin, again, will talk to, and I'm saying be very careful about, but design your organization. So when you've hired these folks, how are they going to work together? What kinds of decisions do they need to make? How are the lines of communications organized? Ben Horowitz has a great blog post about this, and it's also in his Hard Thing About Hard Things. It's a couple of pages. It's a simple process. Think about it. Be thoughtful as you're growing. And at the very least, have one function that is strategically valuable that you are world-class at. Again, FreshBooks is a great example of this. Their customer support team. They've won international awards. The motto inside FreshBooks, which came from one of their great advisors and board members, Pat Condon, who's the founder of Rackspace, is if you take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers, who will take care of your business. It's that simple mantra. So make sure you're always taking care of people, finding out how they are, getting feedback, and be clear about your performance orientation.